And welcome, folks, to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. And, folks, we got a serious conversation to have today. We're going to talk about, one, the tariffs, and I got a special guest here that will be talking about that and how they're going to affect our economy. And two, here in the state of Illinois, they've passed a law against homeschooling. So if you ain't got nothing to do, call your friends and let them know you're listening to Let the Truth Be Told Radio. And I'm your host, Pastor David. Y'all come on in. To the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. Thank you. Thank you. And folks, first let me give all praises to God and my Lord and Savior Yahshua of Nazareth, who made it possible for me to wake up this morning, and all y'all watching the show, we should thank God every morning that we get up. But in the meantime, in between time, there needs to be a couple of conversations that we're going to have today. One is the truth about tariffs. See, what the Democratic Party has done is, because of the inept ability to balance a budget or make our country to a place where it's respectable again with other countries, now that President Trump is in office, he is enacting tariffs so that they could make our economy better. Just the other day, we talked about how all the American companies under the Democratic leadership ran overseas, and now they're able to make money selling products back to the U.S. without tariffs because they're an American company. But that's changing, and these companies are being forced to come back, and they rightfully should so. And that's the reason why I'm having my guest on today. Let me get my panel in here. Hey, Andre.
How you doing?
Hey, Doc.
Hey, how's it going?
Miss Jackson, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, here she is.
Sorry about that.
Welcome to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. Folks, I have a very close friend and a comrade of mine out of Washington, D.C. This lady was beneficial in me becoming an ambassador to Project 21, and she has sort of guided my career and helped me get along with media and sort of got me on the map out here, just as some of the others who are sitting here with me. And I want to introduce Miss Donna Jackson. And Miss Jackson is I'll tell them about your background, Miss J.
I am presently I'm a senior policy analyst with the Committee for Constructive Tomorrow and a former director of Project 21. But my background is in economics and finance. I worked on every level in business, from sales and marketing, operations, and the executive level in finance and accounting. I managed Marriott's international tax provisions. I worked as an auditor, a senior auditor for Ernst & Young, specializing in mom and pop shops and taking them to IPOs. And then I was the lastly, I was the vice president and deputy controller for Export-Import Bank of the United States. So I have a lot of financial background, and that's the lens in which I look at all of these policies that are being enacted and how they're going to economically, what the economic outcome for minority communities will be based upon what they're putting in place. And I think that's, you need a financial framework. It's good to have good slogans, but at the end of the day, how are we prospering financially? And that's the bottom line.
Ms. Jackson, you and I have been comrades a long time. Like I said, over the last 4 years, what we saw under the Democratic leadership, explain the situation, because what has happened now, President Trump inherited a economy that was in total turmoil, and he now is making strategies to try to make it better with these tariffs. Talk a little bit about how these tariffs could help our economy get back on track.
Okay, so, I want to first start off with this. We don't have to guess what the agenda of the Trump administration is right now, because we saw 1.0. And who benefited the most from the first Trump economy? It was blue collar working class people. There was a blue collar boom. The income for household incomes for the lower 25% rose at a faster rate than the top 10% in this country. They had higher incomes. They also had more home starts in terms of buying property. They actually had faster growth in entrepreneurship. All of the things that he was putting in place was actually to benefit middle and low income people. He wasn't trying to, it really was an unintended consequence if wealthy people benefited, because they were never going to pay higher taxes. I know, because I managed the tax provisions for the wealthiest. And when I say that I work for the wealthiest companies, I work for Cardinal Health, number 15 on a Fortune 500 company. I worked for, I actually did the IPOs for Dollar General, Noranda Aluminum, number 25 Fortune 500 companies. I actually did a lot of these IPOs. I watched what could happen. And what he was really trying to do is benefit working class people in this country, because they were the ones that are getting hit the hardest. And that brings me to tariffs.
Yes.
Because what happened in 1980, Bill Clinton signed a NAFTA agreement that allowed for, it's hard to say it was free trade. I would say unequal trade.
Yes,
Between the United States and other countries. Now, something that people don't realize what happened. At the last minute, before that trade agreement was signed, he took out the provision that actually protected working class families and their jobs in this country. So the provision was included in a NAFTA agreement, and he pulled it out. So what happened, and who was hit the hardest? Blue collar workers that had high incomes. It's mostly minority communities.
Yes.
You saw places like Chicago. You saw places like Detroit become ghost towns. Now, Trump talks about how we lost 5 million jobs, manufacturing jobs during that NAFTA trade agreement. But he doesn't talk about all the small businesses that were lost, that used to work and actually was part of those manufacturing jobs. Because remember, if you bring a manufacturing plant in a community, it's not just those direct jobs, but it's indirect. The indirect jobs.
Yeah.
Yes.
The mom and pop shops, the vendors that service them, the parks, all of these industries that grow out of that.
Now, and I want to jump in there. You guys, we're gonna talk a little. It's a conversation. Now, I can remember when Bill Clinton created the NAFTA agreement, because he did not That you are right about that, because once that agreement was signed, most American companies went overseas because the labor was cheaper.
Yes.
I can remember back in the 70s, U.S. Steel was here on the lakefront here in Chicago. In Chicago, the city of Chicago had all sorts of Black entrepreneurs, business over on the east side, west side, south side. The Black community was at its height because you're talking about, we had industrial corridors. Like when you go down Ashland, you had you had all sorts of manufacturing companies, Sweetheart Cups, uh, uh, Oscar Myers. I mean, everything here, the stock market. The Black community boomed in those days because they had good paying jobs. They could take care of their families, send their kids to college. But that's what the American people need to understand, how this thing all started going the wrong way with Bill Clinton and NAFTA, because once those companies left, they went overseas, and the Black community became drained of economics. Black people didn't have jobs. They couldn't send their kids to school. That's when the Democrats made the crime bill, which Joe made the crime bill. That's when the drugs flooded our community and the guns. And that was the beginning of the end of the structure and family of the Black community. The war on drugs was never about the drugs. It was a war on the Black community.
Well, the war on drugs. So people use drugs when they don't have anything to do. And he took away the purpose of most people and what they had to do. I want to feed my family, right? I want to support my family. But now I don't know how to do it. So I self-medicate myself because of the pain I feel, because I can't do that. I feel inadequate. And we have tons of families like this who don't know what to do. They've lost all of their purpose. And so they get into a situation where they're self-medicating themselves to get rid of what they think is the pain. So when he took away, I mean, we're treating symptoms and not the root causes. Because if I can take, you go into a high income family, you have lower crime, you have lower drug abuse, you have all of these things, you have better health. Why? Because the stress that you have when you don't know how you're going to eat, how you're going to take care of your family, brings all kinds of problems. And this has been proven. They know these studies already. And so I think they were fully aware of what they were doing, because we need to have a permanent underclass group of people that we can have power and control over. And so that's why those jobs disappeared. And I think that what you need to realize is what they replaced them with. So, there were people who were making, when I say high 5 and 6 figure incomes, it was very common back even in the 80s for someone working in a Ford Motor plant to be making $100,000 or more. I mean, the amount of overtime. So I knew tons of, not only that, they incentivized people to go back to college. They paid for them to take college courses because it was going to improve the efficiency in those plants. Those plants also served as a model for other people to start businesses. Let's remember, Barry Gordy modeled Motown off of what he learned in the Ford Motor plant. McDonald's modeled what they learned out of the way the Ford Motor plant worked. So all of these, it was so many, the amount of energy, entrepreneurial spirit, the drive. And what did they replace them with? Low paying hospitality
service jobs,
nothing wrong. Service jobs, retail jobs that required the person not just to be working, right? But to also have government assistance. Why do they need that government assistance? You know why they wanted people to be on those programs? Because when the government gives you assistance, it puts a limit on the assets an individual can own. So you have all these people that we're paying not to be productive, not to buy property, not
Yes.
to start businesses, because they give you a ceiling. When you come in and you get a government program, they say you can only own $5,000 worth of asset. So
Mm-hmm.
you're never going to be a homeowner. You're never going to be a business person. And what that does mentally to individuals is it stops them from being innovative. And I think that that was the big loss that we had from that. So what is President Trump trying to do? He's trying to create a balance where we have countries, and we shouldn't even call it a trade war,
Mm-hmm.
because with allies with like the ones we have, who needs enemies?
Exactly.
They sit down and they put a tariff on the products that we sell to their country, anywhere from 20 to 90%. Why? Because it increases the cost so that people are discouraged from buying our goods. But they sell us
Yeah.
their goods with zero tariffs.
Right.
Zero tariffs. So
Right.
what's going to happen? Well, their goods will be favored and ours won't.
Yep.
We've lost not only our ability to sell products, but we've also lost our the individuals, the human capital we have in this country to buy, and not to buy, but to create businesses. You
Yeah.
know, people don't realize this. When Sam Walton started Walmart, he took a loan out on his house, and
Yeah.
every time he opened a new store, he took out a second mortgage, and then he'd pay that off, and then he'd take another mortgage off
Yep.
to open another store. You can't do that now because we've created so many regulations. We've made it so expensive so
Mm-hmm.
that we've actually discouraged people from being entrepreneurs. And then, so we discouraged them from being entrepreneurs, but then we create a barrier so we can't sell our goods, or
Yep.
they're not competitive on the marketplace.
Yeah. But that was
Absolutely.
all a part of the plan. I mean,
And
FDR had the Great New Society. I mean, this is what they planned. It wasn't just happenstance. It just didn't happen. They planned it. And Ross Perot said it best, that giant sucking sound. And we're still hearing it.
Yep.
because they want the socialist model.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you
Yeah.
get everybody on a government program, the government then comes in and controls your life.
And
And
Donna, I
so we
wanted
need to
to.
be more competitive. We need to have a level playing field, so that if you know what, if they sell a better product, that's fine.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we
You're
lost your
on mute.
audio.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Okay.
And Donna, you were cooking, and before you
Yeah.
get too far ahead,
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that I want to testify because earlier you said that we saw the Trump 1.0 and how people benefited
Yes.
tax-wise. And I remember during the Trump 1.0 when I was getting much more of my money. And I also remember, and I guess this was at the midterms where Congress got together and they scaled everything back, all the tax cuts back. And my HR person came back to us and said, well, I want you guys to know ahead of time that you're not going to get as much money, that, there's been some tax changes that have occurred. And when I talk to my friends about like the first Trump administration, I always bring this up because, having more money in your in your check adds more security. It takes off some of that pressure that you were talking about when you're trying to take care of your family. So I'm wearing this blue collar today, but I was wearing that same blue collar back then, and I remember those benefits.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so I think that the most important thing right now is balancing that scale. There's some cities that are never going to come back. You have areas like Detroit.
Yep.
Detroit used to have 1.8 million people in the city.
Yes. Yeah.
After they signed that NAFTA agreement, there's 800,000 and shrinking.
Yeah.
So they lost over 1 million people. What's the alternative that the Democrats are offering us? Well, they're not offering us anything. They're actually bringing in a new group of people to replace us, even in the jobs that we have.
Yeah.
And so we should be looking at that.
Yeah, replacement migration is real, and a lot of people were like, "Oh no!" It's like, yeah, if you didn't see that, our border crossings are down 95%.
That's right.
Okay.
And you need to look at where did they put all those people? Where?
In the
That
Black
was strategic.
community,
Yep.
In Black community. If you don't think
specifically.
that you were one being replaced, pay attention
Yeah.
to where they placed them. That was strategic as well, because
Yes.
you were the people that they
Mhm.
were planning on replacing.
Yeah, and it's continuing right now. They're fighting immigration. They're like, no, we can't lose these
Oh.
people. It's like, wait a minute, you've got murderers and killers, but if they crossed illegally, they crossed illegally. Biden had to
Exactly.
actually give them a special parole so they could stay here in TPS. Go ahead,
Oh,
Anna.
Exactly. And here's the thing, like you have like politicians and Jasmine Crockett is one example, but
Yeah.
Jasmine Crockett is going on this tour and it's called the Americans Don't Want These Jobs tour, and she's going out telling the Americans this at different events. And I was just like, she's not an immigration expert. She's not someone that understands immigration policy and votes down every policy that can help Americans. She voted against 2 policies that protected women against illegal immigrants. She voted against a policy that would make it illegal for people to use a vehicle to escape from border patrol. She voted down a policy that would increase the amount of funds that we had to protect our interior. Like, she voted against all these things, and these things don't help America. All she has is a bunch of talking points and sound bites, and she's not doing anything for her constituents. I don't know if they know, I don't know if they care, but all she's filling their heads with is that immigrants should be put on a pedestal, and if we don't put them on a pedestal, you won't eat. Like, if we stop them from coming here, we won't eat. That's not true. We fed ourselves without immigrants. We fed ourselves with immigrants. We need people to come in this country legally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just, here's the thing. When people come into this country the wrong way, they're abused. So in essence, we're creating a whole nother humanitarian crisis that I don't really want to delve into, but that's what it does. And you create a market that once it fed, human trafficking is over $150 billion industry annually. Right. And they need those bodies coming. And unfortunately, they're using the United States for it. I don't want to be a mule for human trafficking anymore. I don't want my tax dollars being
How
used
much
for
did we
that.
miss?
But that's
Have
what
y'all
they're
been
doing.
going for a minute?
Oh, we've been cooking
Really?
without you. Without you had to step away for a second. And we're good.
I had to find out. Well, we had a little problem here, but there's a couple of videos I want to play. We can y'all been recording ever since, right? Okay.
Yep.
I want to get some videos in to the American people and patriots across this country. We have to really be cognizant of some of the things that's going on. Let me see if this is the one, because President Trump also has
to homeschool our children for a reason.
Okay.
And it's very important to us.
Doc, did you talk about the homeschooling yet?
Not yet. We were still talking about just the economy, tariffs.
Okay.
And
right.
Miss Donna, she was informing us just.
And she is such a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, you are. And just, how NAFTA has literally destroyed specifically the Black community.
Well, it was made like that to do that, because that's why they left out the Protection of the American Worker Act. So, again, this is what I'm trying to get people to see. All of this stuff has been done under the Democratic leadership. It was with Bill Clinton with NAFTA that really started the killing of the Black community. And it was other things, that really brought us to a place where we're at now, because you're talking about single mother homes who went on welfare, who didn't have a father or in the family, or, it was a lot of things that came against us, not only with the drugs and the guns. I mean, the whole family structure went down to maybe like about from 90% to maybe about 13%. And now we're lower than any, probably 8 or 9%. So it was never a war on drugs. It was a war on the Black community. And that's why we are seeing this replacement migration. What are your thoughts on that, Andre?
Yeah, we talked about this while you were out. Essentially, as Donna and Dr. Nichols was saying, look at where they sent people. They sent people to the Black communities.
Yes.
We're also seeing all these elected officials that are not having the will of their constituents in mind. All their policies are to protect immigrants, which is fine. We want immigrants to be safe, but we also want to make sure that Americans are taken care of, that they're protected, that the policies that you put in place to help immigrants are not overlooking Americans. Like they have policies that will protect immigrants in certain places. And when we do things like that, we create loopholes for nefarious characters to be able to utilize those places to hide from the authorities, from ICE. We also see that they're taking opportunities to provide legal assistance to illegal immigrants. And I'm just like, you know, where's the same energy for Americans? Like there's a lot of Black Americans, Hispanic Americans that have legal issues and they don't get free counsels. No one's going in pro bono to help them.
No, because they didn't put it in the Inflation Reduction Act like it was put in for the people that are here illegally.
Education commissioners were told in a letter.
Okay. Now, since we had a little interruption, I'm trying to get my groove back with you guys.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. But the Inflation Reduction Act, to what Andre was saying, fueled a lot of what he's talking about.
Right. But go ahead, Donna.
You know, the Inflation Reduction Act, again, is another egregious
bill
for
Medicare.
Hurts the Black community.
Yes.
They put in there $60 billion for environmental justice. Now, listen, you know, they add justice to everything to get the emotions going for Black Americans. Okay, I want to do a calculation. So let me bring this first off. $60 billion is the market capitalization of Ford Motor Company when it was the big three, the number one. If you do today's adjusted level, that could build over 2,200 Black Wall Streets. You could literally create over 2,200 Black Wall Streets with financial districts, self-sufficient communities with that $60 billion. But what does the $60 billion do? It actually targets manufacturing and industrial complexes that represent high-paying blue-collar jobs for who? Black and brown people, mostly Black people. Because the income of manufacturing plants is twice as much as it is for retail. So we replace $100,000 jobs with $35,000, $40,000, $20,000 jobs. Right. And then you have to go to the government to get your Medicaid.
Yes.
And the companies also get a kickback off of that too, because when they have so many people that are on that, they get I want to say it's almost like not a refund, but there is something in the schedule where when they file their taxes, because let's say they hired 10 people on welfare, right? They'll actually get that money deducted.
Yeah, and it's for the benefit of the corporation, not
really
for the individuals. Because they make people getting government benefits do a certification every year.
Wow. It lowers their taxable income. That's what I meant to say.
Yes, they make them do a certification every year. So you have to report all of the assets that you have. Now, that's not, everything. You have to turn in your bank statements, any property you own, everything. And then they tell you can't have more than $5,000 worth of it. So the reason why Black people
Institutionalized
are
racism.
consumers. Have you noticed
Yep.
that?
Yeah, we
Black
are.
people are consumers and not owners because it's built into the tax code.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Built into the tax code.
And some people have been getting over by actually having a 501c4 and a foundation, and that's where they hide all of their assets. But they say, well, I don't own anything, I don't have anything. And they'll literally put it under their child's name or under a relative's name, and they will get government assistance because they don't have any assets, because they technically
that's what most
but they'll hide it
billionaires
and live off of the government. I'm just
right,
saying.
exactly. Well, you know that a
They
lot
do
of
that.
millionaires and billionaires have those trusts, and that's where they put all their assets in trust.
Yep.
So that counts if you are not the owner of the trust, or you are just the manager of the trust, your assets are protected.
Yep.
But
You see-
the problem is that when we're spending all of this time trying to hide, right?
Yeah.
Then we're actually not creating. And
Yes.
one of the things I want to bring out is, they always make it seem like, oh, capitalism is anti-Black. Do you know between 1870 and 1940?
Yeah.
So this is pre the civil rights movement. African Americans actually filed 50,000 patents.
Yes.
Yep.
50,000 patents. That means they were the maker of the refrigerator,
Washing machine
African-Americans,
ringer.
street lights. We had 50,000 patents.
Yes.
We in places like Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, we had more patents than white Americans. More.
Yeah.
We actually had and owned businesses. We owned them. So anybody who used whatever product that we had, that individual and his organization actually got money back.
Yeah.
Because they had to pay him for that patent. Today we have zero.
That's because we
And
don't have
that's the
thinkers.
problem, because all of these programs, when they say, well, we're going to do that, and we spend all of our time hiding here, we can't be out in the forefront, then we're not creating anything. I'm saying to him, you got the NAACP, the Urban League, all these people that have taken in billions of dollars. Where are the industrial complexes? Where are the manufacturing plants?
They're
Yes.
placeholders. Those are
Where
placeholder
are-
organizations to make sure we stay on the plantation. Sorry.
Listen, where are the universities they started? I don't see the universities they created.
No.
But Donna, while I got you here, and I know you've delved in human resources too, I want to play this clip about DEI because when President Trump got into office, he started to wipe the DEI out because that was a way that we saw a lot of unexperienced teachers that got into the system who were brought in under DEI and not really know how to train our children other than the social stuff we see. We're going to go into that right quick. Check this out.
Education commissioners were told in a letter that they have 10 days to do away with DEI initiatives that the administration finds discriminatory or lose federal Title I funding, which the majority of city public schools receives for low-income student bodies.
A few moments later.
New York State says it is keeping diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in schools, despite the White House threatening to pull federal funding.
And we found out it was not DEI, it was DUI.
And we are back, y'all. Thank you for.
Now, I want to get your thoughts on that because, this is what I see is poverty pimps like Reverend Al Sharpton. We were just talking about the inefficiencies of Black organizations like the National Action Network, the NAACP, the Urban League, the Divine Nine, and their companies and all like that. Donna, talk a little bit about how these house Negroes affecting us financially, because they're not. Now the reason why I'm saying it is because now think about this. They were built on the premise of protecting civil rights, fighting for the Black community, making sure the Black community could be self-contained, all the things that would uplift the community and make it just like everybody else's community who already have all those components. But people like Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, the organizations like NAACP have never done anything to help Black people. Your thoughts on that?
So I have a lot of terrible thoughts about this DEI, but let me start off with this. First, I'm always thinking about the money, right? Only 3.8% of DEI professionals are Black.
Yes.
You know that? Only 3.8 of the DEI profession is Black. 76% of the DEI profession is white Americans. Then you go through with
Latinos,
disabled, all these people, and Black people are at the very end.
LGBT is in front of Black people.
LGBTQ, all of these people. So they use a blackface to sell DEI, right?
Yeah.
But the Black people are not the benefactors of DEI. The other thing is that DEI has been used as a scapegoat for inadequate teachers.
Yes.
So the only thing I go in there and say, well, we got all these Black kids. Year after year, you have a teacher who everybody in her class fails. And you're like, none of these kids are proficient. Well, it's DEI. It's because Black people don't value math. It's because Black people don't understand timing. It's because Black people, and I think that I get angry at African Americans when they go along with this. I mean, math was started in Egypt. Can we start there? When Europeans were savages, it was Black people that introduced universities to them.
Timbuktu.
Yeah.
It was it was Black people that introduced engineering. It was Black people that created algebra. It was Black people that they were savages. We introduced Black people introduced literature, all of these arts, all of these things, and then now all of a sudden we're incompetent.
Well,
we're not capable of being able to master things that our race created.
But
we
you know what,
taught each other how to read as slaves and brought lawsuits. We hired people to bring lawsuits as slaves, and then today, free people when people with PhDs can't teach a Black kid to read. No, that's on purpose. When you get a competent teacher in the classroom that's actually bringing the kids up to grade level, then they get rid of that teacher. And then we created, the Department of Education created I always say a law around it.
But
because what did they do? They gave the schools where the kids were underperforming more money. So that's the incentive.
Well, you know what? And in saying that, Doc, I want you to go into your homeschooling, because here in the state of Illinois, we have a supermajority for the Democrats. And what they have done, they've created certain bills that take parental rights away. They got bills right now that parents in Illinois are just waking up to, that they created during COVID, that tells your child that you can lie to your parents if you feel there's a boy inside you and a girl. I mean, the laws that they created now to push even homeschoolers, to push them to a place where they're being forced to come to school if they don't follow these rules. Doc, talk a little bit about that, Doc.
Yeah, so it's HB 2827 in Illinois. It was passed about 3 weeks ago, but to your point, people are just getting real wind of it and how it's going to affect them. And what it is, they're trying to bridge the gap between public school and homeschool. So now they want to require that homeschoolers are immunized. Now they want to require that homeschooling teach a certain curriculum. But this is why people left the public school system as their right under the First Amendment And they're violating it by actually writing laws the 10th Amendment says you can't do. And see, this is what I don't understand about some of these states. Now, a lot of people will come back with Governor DeSantis. Yes. Now, there are some things that he's done that I do not agree with. And he might be in violation with the 10th Amendment, violating people's First Amendment rights. But because it's a state, it is a very slippery slope for the federal government to get involved. But when it's causing harm, and that's the point that we have to get to, this is going to cause harm because we already know that vaccines in some instances does cause autism in certain children, especially Black children. Yes. It also comes down to the fact that when was the last time a public school had a 13-year-old go to college? I'll wait. Because it's never happened, because they don't educate these kids. These kids are indoctrinated, and that's what they want. They want a society that they can control, because they can't control educated people, and that is what they want. And that's what we really have to pull away from. I'm waiting for the Supreme Court to get involved in this one, because I don't think a law like this should stand.
Your thoughts, Dre?
Well, I want to go back to a few things that we've talked about around this, because DEI is definitely a problem in our education system. But I think overregulation is also a problem within the teacher training programs and how people become teachers and the mentorship. And then another thing, they're not paying teachers, for the work that they do. So they're not attracting quality applicants. And there's a saying, those that can do, those that can't teach. That shouldn't be the thing. The teachers are training these professionals that can either go into teaching or they can go into a whole bunch of other fields. So how are they the ones that can't? So, I think that we have to deal with some regulation issues as well. And as far as homeschooling, I am just blown away by this. Like right now, my wife homeschools our 4 children, and I'm just the principal, but we left for the reasons that you guys are talking about, like the immunizations, these DEI programs that they're putting and imposing upon children. We don't trust the public school system. That's why we decided to educate our children, and they're doing better than they would if they were in some trash public school program.
Well, I'm gonna play a clip that we found about the homeschooling, and we can talk about that. Hang on.
Homeschool our children for a reason, and it's very important to us. And our freedom to continue to do that is what we will continue to fight for.
Lisa Edison homeschools her 4 children, ranging in ages from 12 to 17. Today, she took her daughter to the Capitol building in Springfield in opposition of the Homeschool Act. The trip also serving as a hands-on lesson.
A massive field trip day to the Capitol building, where our kids are learning about, civics, a little bit of U.S. Government.
The bill, which did pass the Education Policy Committee at the Capitol today, aims to add oversight of families who homeschool their children. The bill would require families to tell their school districts when they decide to homeschool their kids, and the parents or guardians would need to have a high school diploma or equivalent.
Education is a fundamental right for every child. However, we know that loopholes exist, and we have a duty to ensure that children actually receive an education. This is not something we want to be an outlier on.
Now, I want to pause that for just a second. We can respond to that.
She said it. You should be required to educate. Then why aren't you? Yes. That's my question to the public school system in every state, not just Illinois, every state. Because I graduated with a 5th grade reading level, so I know what happened.
So it's not an unintended consequence that if you look at almost every urban, predominantly Black area in America, and you will see that the results are exactly the same. They are.
Yes.
You go into Baltimore County, you go to Illinois, you go to all these people. Yeah. So there's 2 things happening here. One, they got wind of the fact that the fastest growing demographic that was homeschooling was who? African American.
Exactly.
They know that statistic, right? They need to keep this community, these people under their thumbs, our people under their thumbs. So they weren't going to let us get away
No,
So
because
don't think it's not a targeted effort.
Oh yeah.
And then why do we have so many teachers that are bad?
now
Because if you have a good teacher, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
She's looking around at the bad teachers, and the bad teachers are getting rewarded. Why do I say that? This bad teacher who does nothing gets to go home early, is not innovative, is not
Right.
doing anything creative. And guess what? She gets the same amount of money and she's
or
actually
more.
rewarded. The person who's putting in all this time and effort is actually getting penalized because they're putting in extra effort. They're putting in their own financial resources a lot of times. They're taking time away from their families. And this person over here that's barely doing anything is getting the same money. And the person that's sitting there fighting to actually make sure they educate these kids,
To lose
I'm
their job.
going, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Why am I doing all of this when these people are not only are they getting the same money, but they're getting promoted?
Well, you know, that's one of the things that we have. When I first got involved with the homosexuality that they put into school with bill that became a law, SB 818, and that allowed, it was part of the DEI thing too, because that allowed them to get rid of black teachers who were well qualified to teach the children, and then they brought people in that maybe had no idea on what to teach, but they gave them a curriculum that they could talk about, which was not about learning. And that's why we see here in the state of Illinois, they're graduating kids at the 80 and 90% level, but yet they can't even read or write. They can't even count. If
There's in the pipeline.
Yeah.
It's a prison pipeline.
I remember when public schools used to be pretty good. My
Good.
wife and I went to public schools.
Me too.
I made the best friends. I learned as much as I could. But what happened? We started flooding these schools with all these immigrants.
Illegals. Yep,
And then,
exactly.
And then what happened? Then we started diverting money to all these language teachers, diverting money to bringing in better teachers, because all these other teachers that were currently there were being inundated with having to teach their already large classes and then have to divert.
Yes, I can remember that.
The, other students up to speed, which never happened. So our students got ignored and
always pushed to the back.
It's
to me, and this is what I don't understand with the black community, is that every time something happens, we're always last on the list for them to respond to our needs. Anything the black community has, we're last. They put the migrants over us. When the Mexicans came, they put the Mexicans over everybody. And black people used to be like right here under, supposed to be white folks, okay? We were second. We've never been second. And every time a new race came, a class of people came, we went further down.
But
Down.
that's on purpose.
That's on purpose because they get a few of these African American elites, and I hate this, liberal. I'm gonna make the difference. They get a lot of the race hustlers to get up there and say the African American community is perfectly okay with that, and irregardless. I mean, you heard on the internet you heard on mainstream TV how, people who are against illegal immigrants were white supremacists, were MAGA, right?
Yep.
And they completely ignored all the black communities that were saying, we want the illegal immigrants out of this community.
Right.
They completely ignored that. The other thing I'm going to say is this. There is a military industrial complex in this country, right?
Yes, there is.
And you need an active aggression to constantly funnel money into that industrial complex. There is a poverty industrial complex that is wealthier than the military industrial complex. And the only thing you need is to make sure you have a people that you keep under a certain economic social status to feed it. And so, you know, you have places, look, I was in California where they paid $4,000 a month for a tent for homeless people that you can go to Dick's Sporting Goods and get for $99, but they paid $4,000 a month.
And that's why they making money.
Yeah,
Off the migrants.
it's become a profit center. Homelessness has become a profit center. Poverty is a profit center.
Poverty is a profit center, and they were strategic about creating the narratives. So, you know, when they said Black people can't, you know, they can't get an ID, Black people can't read, they can't do math. That's, you know,
that
you heard about Britney Spears, right? Britney Spears was under this conservatorship. I think I said that right. Conservatorship, right? Where she was considered incompetent to be able to manage her own finances and manage her own life. And if you look at all the criteria to be under that certain scenario,
that's how Black people being treated.
That's what they've created in the narrative about African American community, so that you have really essentially white liberals in control of what African Americans can do.
Exactly.
I mean, they were strategic and said they weren't just saying that because they wanted you to have, they really believed that you couldn't get
it was a plan. Card.
But if you tell somebody that an individual can't meet their basic needs, then you have to, the courts will appoint someone to then manage that person's life. That's what they've done essentially for the entire Black community by creating all of these narratives. Don't think it's not a point to all of this, because it is.
That's why they're flipping out about Doge. That's why they're flipping out about Doge. You're like, no,
they're getting caught.
Because you ain't gonna get that money.
That's right.
We're speaking up. Like, what are you doing?
I'm going to play the rest of this clip because it shows a friend of mine, Miss Natasha. She has homeschooling, and it shows you how it affected Doc. What you're
Supporters of the bill also say this legislation is about protecting children from potential abuse at home, but critics see it differently.
We believe it's religious persecution. That's what we believe. We believe it really is, because this bill invades our privacy, it's unconstitutional, and it threatens and it overreach and it interferes with parental rights.
Latasha Fields graduated 2 of her children from homeschool and is currently teaching her 2 youngest. She also runs a micro school in her home where the class size fluctuates. She says they teach everything from financial literacy and Spanish to engineering and fine arts.
That's the beauty of it. It's individualization, not just with the kids, but the whole dynamic of the family.
Today is homeschool co-op day, and they're actually practicing a song here as a part of their music lesson. They're preparing to play this song in front of 200 people at the Chicago Home Educators Summit.
Watch breaking news.
Now, folks, I know Miss Fields, and she's been teaching for a while. When COVID came, and that was when they ushered in all the new rules, homosexual stuff, all of that came during COVID. That was the time when they was able to institute it. She had her kids out. She'd been teaching them. And I was urging people back in the day, take your children out of public schools, because when you do that, you draw their money down. And now that the Board of Education is no longer in place, the states don't have that money that they've had in the past. And so now they're trying to force the homeschoolers, force them back into the school system. That's what they're doing.
Because it became their business model, right? Because the state, to your point, when someone doesn't show up on that attendance record, they don't get that money. It's not so much the federal funding, it's the state funding.
Right, and that's what they do. Like when it becomes like when school go out in the summer and they come back in, they want everybody there the first day, because if they get the numbers, they get the pot of money that they need, even if the kids don't participate. They want the numbers on that first day of school. And so that's why I think that homeschooling should be protected. They should lose this. Illinois should not be wanting to force homeschoolers into the back.
But they've already passed the bill. The bill passed. But I think it can be challenged at the Supreme Court
That's
level.
what
I
I'm
don't
thinking
think
too.
Democrats should give up. I think they should challenge it because, to her point, it violates their First Amendment rights.
It really does. Yeah, and that's the sad thing. We have to really now, parents, a lot of parents don't know about this. A lot of parents do not follow it. They're too busy doing other stuff, especially in our community. You know, we're talking about a lot of parents don't make the PTA meetings. They don't go check on the child. They believe whatever the school says is right. But the school, in some instances, is our children's worst enemy, because what they're being taught now, nothing about reading, science, and math. It's all about social stuff. It's all about transgender stuff. It's about all of those things. And that's why our children are in such danger with that type of indoctrination. Homeschools should be allowed, and it should not be infringed on. Anybody can jump on that.
Yeah, well, you know what? They actually, if you want to go first, they actually created the public school system to actually take control of our communities.
Yes.
Because it used to be the churches, when the churches were doing the right thing, but it used to be the churches, it used to be individuals in their home. They would teach those kids. Now, remember, we taught each other how to read
We did.
as slaves. We taught ourselves how to do that. And so it's not that we're not capable of, but they wanted to control what we were teaching our kids. Now, schools, the public school systems, the way they set it up was never about creating innovation. It was never about making sure that people could invent and create. It was making sure that you had individuals who would follow and do what they were told.
Indoctrination.
That was the purpose of public education. It's the reason why when you go in most public school systems, they look, they're
like
the
prisons.
aesthetics of them looks just like, you're putting them into a prison system. There's no creativity behind it.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do that. It's so egregious, but the fact that you have people that are told that, math is not important. Science is not important. This is not what you should have your kids focused on. But if you go, we need to remember that the bottom line of education is to be able to put our kids in a situation where they can be competitive with their skills in the marketplace.
Yes.
Corporations, I have to say this, corporations do not hire people because they're charities. They hire people because they have a problem and they need somebody who is able to think strategically to solve it.
Your thoughts,
They're not just people that put this bot to this bot to that. No, they need people that can solve their problems. They're not giving charitable jobs out. And then the other thing is, when we have kids who can think strategically, who are creative, who are innovative, they can add value to society by putting a product out there that's more efficient. I talked about those patents. You think about George Washington Carver, over 90,000 products. Almost every product that you go in your house and use is made from a derivative of his innovation.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these things is about adding value to society. And if you add a value to society, you will actually get a payback for it. You'll actually get financial. You'll build an industry and you will actually create a complex where you don't need government intervention. You know what? Sam Walton, and I bring him up, and I like to bring him up because I studied innovation. Okay, you know what was the biggest breakthrough that Sam Walton made? It wasn't about a big box store. It wasn't about that. It was he changed the way logistics was done for businesses in this country. Before Walmart, Sam Walton wanted to have a discount store in rural areas where people couldn't get brand name products. And the manufacturers laughed at him. They laughed and they said, okay, we'll sell you the products, but you got to come pick them up because we're not delivering anything to these poke towns. He said, okay. He bought a warehouse. Now, warehouses, it used to be that corporations would have their store and then they would pay a middleman to have a warehouse, and they would pay a trucking company to go pick them up. And so you had all of these 3 different people. What he did was bought his own warehouses, bought his own trucks. He sent the trucks out to the corporation to pick up his products. He put them in the warehouses, and then he had real time in his stores because there's no back rooms. When you scan a product at the register, it automatically reorders at the manufacturing so that they ship it, they have another product. So what he did is real-time logistics. That's what changed the way all of the businesses do. Now every corporation owns their own warehouse, owns their own trucks. But before that, they told him he was a fool. You're crazy. We're not. And that's how he was able to do it cheaper, because he didn't have to pay this guy a premium. He didn't have this guy a premium. He owned his own warehouses. He owned his own truck. He put his own system in there where he knew how to reorder. And that's why Walmart's right now is so productive, because they cut out all of those. We don't think about, we have individuals capable of that. We have this kind of human knowledge, this kind of human innovation in our communities, but we're paying them not to use it.
But the thing of it is, our community can be self-sufficient. I mean, everything that we need, we have. We have knowledgeable people in our community. We have entrepreneur spirit. The opportunities are not made available. Your thoughts on that, Dre?
Yeah, and I really just want to give like the parents out here an encouragement, because a lot of times they'll think, well, you know, I'm not a college graduate. I should be able to teach my own children. And what Donna brought up was amazing. Like, companies are looking for people that can think outside the box. And I think that parents should know there are resources and programs where you can put your children in these programs and they teach them how to do that. They put them in situations where they do that, and you don't have to pay for it. Like my wife and I'm going to give you a perfect example. We just asked this program, hey, you know, we want our kids in this program, and I think they'd be a good fit. We just want to put it on a payment plan, you know, like, you know, $3,000 up front for this program. That's a little bit out of our budget. And you know what they did? Just gave us a scholarship. And I was just like, I didn't qualify for that scholarship, but I can tell you God's just good. But this could work for other parents too. Like, go out, find programs that are going to make your children think outside the box. You don't have to be responsible for teaching your children everything in the homeschool program.
Well, you know what?
I want to say one thing, and I'm sorry that I'm talking a lot.
Go ahead.
I was, like I told you from the beginning, I'm sorry I'm talking about. Let me add this though.
Keep cooking.
I told you I was, you know, I was an executive at, you know, the Export-Import Bank. I worked for Ernst & Young doing IPOs. I was, you know, I hired and fired lots of people, thousands, tens of thousands of people I was responsible for. Let me tell you something. Corporations will actually sign an agreement with schools so that they're teaching the skill sets they need so that those people can be future hires. I would encourage anybody with a homeschooling program or a homeschooling association, go to Marriott and say, listen, we have future Marriott hotel owners. We have future Marriott managers. Will you partner with us? Let us know the skills that they're going to need, that you're looking for, that will bring innovation to you, because everything that happens. I used to do that with Ernst & Young. We would go to the business schools and say, this is the skills that we need your graduates to have so that in the future, we can hire them to work on these jobs. Partner with corporations. Partner with this. Even if you don't partner with them, ask them what they're looking for the future, so that you build that. So that when they get ready to graduate from school or whatever the situation is, those people, your kids are going to be the first ones they hire. A lot of times, they will give you, those kids, internships while they're in school.
Yep.
They'll have them work so many hours. Partner with go to the corporations and ask them, what skills are you looking for? Because let me tell you something, those people will be relieved that I don't have to train these people when they graduate. They already have the skills and are ready to jump in and get started on the floor running. So that's what I would encourage anybody who's homeschooling, has any associations like that. Because let me tell you something, when I was in business, that's what I was looking for. I would go to college campus all the time. This is the skill sets I need for your people to have when it's time for me to get ready to hire. And a lot of times, not only would I hire them, the people that I was partnering with, like vendors and legislators and stuff, I would match them with those individuals so that when it was time for them to graduate, they were the first people we hired. And they got hired at a higher rate because it was a learning curve for them when they came in about learning the business.
Nice. And you know what, just so right, because of that, a lot of people were able to start families and have good jobs. Because I was on a show, the Miss Farrah's show, about a couple of days ago, and she was talking about a contractor, because we had a program here in Illinois that said they wanted to help our young people, but it actually didn't. But I'm meeting with a contractor who has a contract to create 3 submarines, and they're looking for welders and all sorts of workers. So I've contacted them to have a conversation with them to see if they will hire some of these young people out of high school, train them, and let them become good employees. That's what we're trying to do now. Donna, you're so right. We got to get out of here, folks. It's been great. Give me your words, Dre. You've been quiet up on the hill.
No, man, you guys have been cooking. I'm just glad to be a part of this panel. Homeschool parents, listen to the resources that we discussed today, pay attention to the laws, push back, and continue to watch what's going on with your elected officials and immigration policy.
Dre, thank you. We look forward to it. Doc Chat.
Hey guys, thank you so much, Ms. Donna, for being a part of our panel and sharing your intellect and just your past experiences, because this is what our audience definitely needs to hear, especially about the tariffs, because I know people are freaking out. And guess what though? Trump doesn't want to tax your tips. He doesn't want to tax your Social Security. He wants you to have money in your pocket, because when you have money in your pocket, that means money in the economy. And that means we're all doing better. And just everybody remember, when you look up towards heaven, just remember all these things that are happening. Do not lose heart, for your redemption is drawing near. And definitely check out the USA Redemption Party. We're looking for candidates to be servants of the people, not politicians. And we also need members of the party. So again, that's usaredemptionparty.com.
Thank you, Doc, and we'll be seeing you soon. Miss J, you got the last words.
Well, I want people to understand that we're looking forward to Blue Collar Boom 2.0. We need every person in society to be a productive member, but not just a productive member, be able to have a high standard of living so they can build our communities. It's not about government programs. It's about our innovation and what we bring to the table. And let me tell you something. The only color that matters is green.
Yes.
Money.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I look forward to it. I'll send you the link. Blessings, sweetie. And folks, I want to thank you for tuning in to the show. And Miss J is just full of information. She is so well versed about everything. She has been a leader in this country for a lot of major companies, and that's why I wanted to have her on, so she can give us that information that we hardly ever hear, because we are never behind the scenes. These are my last words. To the American people and patriots across this country, it has been an endless attack on our children in the school system. And we have to support what President Trump is doing. I keep going back to the things that he is doing, because he's trying to get this country back to the way it was when our children could read and write, when they could learn, when they were thinkers, when they could think about creating a pattern, just like what Dr. J was saying. All of these things are not in our school system. And to the parents in the state of Illinois, we must continue to fight and stand up for our children. We can't just let J.B. Pritzker and all these homosexual lectures and the classes and curriculum they're doing to our kids. Our legislators need to be fighting back and standing on the laws and fighting against these laws, because our children have come prey to pedophiles in the school system because of DEI. So I'm telling parents, get involved with the school system, make sure your kids are okay, talk to them, be their friend, and get them to understand they must never quit communicating with you no matter what. God bless you. We'll see you guys tomorrow. God